there's definitely an upward trajectory that I've noticed. And I know people say, well, it's not that significant. AOC wins in 18, Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman win in 20. Who's to say you're not going to have three new congressional members come in 2022? Because I think every election cycle, you learn something new about the way the sausage is made. Now, obviously, when you and Jen were candidates, I was there, and there were, a litany of different groups that came in. Obviously, was very intrigued by Fidel and everything he talked about as far as MMT was concerned, modern monetary theory. Is there a sort of like a concrete strategy, maybe more of a fluid strategy, as far as the types of issues that you believe that candidates really need to be focusing on? I mean, obviously Medicare for all is a given, I would think, but there are probably a lot of others that you guys have found are what most candidates should be focusing on. Is that something that you guys have, currently undertaken?
Well, when you just think about the issues that Americans are facing, those issues are the popular issues that progressives talk about. The need to raise the minimum wage. I just don't know in any city, in any state, where you really feel comfortable making $7.25 an hour. Or if you're a tipped worker, if you make $2.13 an hour, that, hey, I can really take care of my family. I don't think anyone's feeling that way. And so when we talk about increasing minimum wage, climate change, I don't know about you all, but it is really hot here right now. And it is really hot here right now. Our electricity grid is starting to crater, and we are paying more because we have inept leadership. Well, being able to have heat, being able to have air, being able to have water is not just a progressive value, it's an American value. And so what we're talking about are things that add to the dignity of Americans. Being able to have a job that takes care of your family. That's something our candidates talk about. Being able to have public education that actually is funded. Our teachers are supported. That's what our candidates talk about. Being able to go out into an atmosphere and you don't feel like you're about to burn up. That's what our candidates are talking about. So we don't have the new positions. Student loan debt. Biden needs to address that. We need to stop hiding around it and pushing the can down the road. We need something about student loan debt. The things we've been talking about, they haven't been solved yet. Criminal justice reform. We all saw George Floyd get murdered on TV. And it is still not resolved where police officers don't have the immunity. They still have that protection. And so the things we've been talking about, we're going to continue talking about them because they have not been solved.
Right. No, I agree. And one of the things I always say that I loved so much about Brand New Congress was that it wasn't specific policies. It was this 21st century Bill of Rights. It's this idea of that we're all entitled to this certain quality of life in a civilization. And the policies to address that are not concrete. Those need to be fluid. They need to be able to be. That's where compromises get made, not on what the end result needs to be. Like people having healthcare is a given. People have to have healthcare. But like we can say, should we do one type of system versus another type of system? I mean, yeah, we can negotiate on those things. But I love that about Brand New Congress, that it really is about the principle and not this specific policy. And you talk about what people need versus this policy, that policy, this thing. And that I think is really important. Because the policies are going to change. They're going to change. They're going to have different sponsors, different authors, different things. And so you can't get attached to a particular policy, but you can definitely get attached to a position, Exactly. So I just think that's really important. Yeah.
Exactly. And every city or every area, every congressional district in America is not cookie cutter. So our needs along the Gulf Coast are different from the needs of those on the East Coast or those that are in the Midwest. They're just different, but we need the issues that we're fighting here addressed. We need it. We just need it. Public education is something that needs to be addressed across this country. Student loan debt. We need to free up some people where, our young people are strapped with that student loan debt where it's trillions of dollars. And so there's some things that are across America that everyone needs, but there's some things that are more regional that
Right.
needs to be addressed. And it is the rights that we have as Americans. Everyone is entitled to that. And we want to see that across the board. When we talk about Black America, we want absolute equality. And that's just what we need, because that's our right as an American, is to be able to enjoy all of America like everyone else.
Right. Well, it's, you know, we talk about that this is a country of freedom and we have freedom, but I would argue that if you are strapped by debt and stress and just constant living in desperation, that you're not free. Right. It is not free to live in debt and have that. And when we think about what, you know, Biden could do a debt jubilee and eliminate all student debt, he actually can do that. And that's what's so frustrating, is we're not even talking about something that can't be done. It can be done. They're choosing not to do it. And that's really frustrating. But I wanted to ask you if you've noticed a shift at all since when you started in 2018 with BNC in terms of coalescing, if you will, with the Democratic Party. And what I'm talking about is different candidates in different locations. Like for us in Broward, it's close to impossible, like to make any headway in the party apparatus as a progressive. But have you noticed any shifts at all, like nationally, in terms of openings for progressives in the party?
Not necessarily have I, and I'm talking about, I got to say that I haven't been with Brand as the ED of Brand New Congress long enough to see shifts, and we're just now getting candidates launched to where I haven't been talking to someone in this part of the country and that part of the country to just see the different fields across the country. I think the Democratic Party is reckoning with the fact that progressives are not going anywhere. And the progressives demographic is younger and it's more diverse. And that's the voting block that Democrats need.
Yeah.
And so that in itself is pushing that movement. And so this is really a two-party country. You know, it's just, if you want to run as an independent, there's certain, you can't even, like, for example, Act Blue, you've got to be able to be a Democrat to use Act Blue. So you're running as an independent, you might probably find a harder way to be able to raise money online. Because, you know, Act Blue is like our place that we go to, but I've got to be a Democrat for that. And so it's harder running as an independent. And I know people that I personally know that'll just say, you know, I'm no longer a Democrat, but they're not a Republican, but they think more independently. But when you go to vote, it's still Democrat and Republican.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. And you'll even see, like I always see in the comments like, oh, I'd never vote for a Democrat, or, oh, if you run as a Democrat. I live in Florida. There's no other option. That's just what the menu is. And I am supportive of changing the menu, but right now that's the menu, you know, it is what it is. And I mean, there's just not, I mean, hopefully we can get more states have ranked choice voting and maybe start broadening that. But no, we have to deal with the Democratic Party. There's no way around it to some extent. Right.
There really isn't. I mean, when you really get into the grassroots of our political systems, you really get involved, it's Democrat, Republican. It just really is. We think more independently, but right now we're a two-party system, and we're a two-party system that is so polarized that I get disheartened when I look and say, okay, you know, what we were told is that we have control of the White House, we have control of the House, and we have the control of the Senate. Okay, we can't get the Voting Rights Act passed. So what are we getting done having that trifecta? So do we really have one?
Yeah, and that's a very good point, because as I try to emphasize to people, if you really want to have you know, Jen and I were just talking about before, you know, more of a parliamentary electoral system, you have to first start with something like ranked choice voting. If you are able to pass that, then you can have that conversation. There are so many infrastructural issues that exist. We were talking about the importance of what has transpired in Nevada. I think one of the absolute best candidates by far running for Congress for 22 is Amy Vilela, who ran previously with Brand New Congress and decided to take an election cycle off. And that was probably the best decision she could have made, because now there is an infrastructure in place that may not necessarily aid her in winning a race, but they are going to make sure that there is no unfairness or nefarious behavior taking place, so that when she does run and when there is the election, it's a fair election. Right. And I think that's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing, is this infrastructural component that must be added in addition to candidates who want to run for office. Is that something that is going to be emphasized this time around with Brand New Congress?
In what way?
Regards to if you're a candidate and you're building your team, wherever that may be, the importance of recognizing that everyone who is involved has to be as involved as they can be. One of the things that we emphasize here in Broward, for example, is if you do want Jen to run again, being a precinct committee leader, precinct committee captain, doing things in regards to helping build name recognition is immensely important. So as it's obviously important to have a candidate that people feel inspired by, it's also very important to have a team behind you that is going to do everything in their power to make sure that the election is as fair and as plausible for an upset as it can possibly be. Exactly.
Well, that's part of the grassroots structure, is making sure that because most of our candidates and most progressive candidates start off as unknowns. And so building that name recognition is tough. And when you run in areas such as Florida and Texas that are massive, we don't have dense populations. You're going from city to city, cross counties, because of the gerrymandering to get, to another part of your district. It takes a lot of people. And for us as regular everyday folk, we don't have that kind of amassed wealth to just run huge campaigns or, millions of dollars of a campaign to really go across these big areas. So we're very dependent on grassroots donors, grassroots organization, field teams of volunteers. A lot of things are just volunteer led because it's moved by passion. And it makes our races harder, but it also makes our races ones that have more heart, because even if the candidate does not win, the conversation has still been started. The talk about progressive values have still been talked about. We look now at what happened on January the 6th. Well, it is like, shh, you won't talk about that. And we all saw what happened at our Capitol, but shh, we don't want to talk about that, especially when you have conservative leadership, such as those that are in Texas. And we have congressional representatives here in Texas who don't want to talk about those kind of things, but they have the advantage because they are incumbents. And give the example, the incumbent that I ran against, he does not communicate with the community. But during the campaign season, when it comes up to election time, he sends out newsletters. Well, these newsletters are paid with public money. And so it's during campaign time, it's during election season, and that's when they send out mail. And that's nothing more than campaign mail that the public is paying for. It's just not shown as that.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.